Starting us off in at number 10, Hal Jordan. Sure, there are a handful of reasons why one would dislike Hal Jordan, mainly obnoxious personality trait based reasons. No offense if you adore him, that actually was not an attack on his character. But at one point we all universally disliked Hal Jordan. Once upon a time, Jordan was possessed by the evil entity Parallax and threatened to destroy the world. Okay, context here. As a result of the death of Superman's storyline, Coast City was destroyed, Coast City being Jordan's home. Distraught with grief, he became further susceptible to Parallax's influence. The entity, who is the embodiment of fear, had targeted the Green Lantern for a while, and this was the perfect opportunity to finally act out its plan. It manipulated Hal to go on a murder streak, seemingly killing Sinestro and other Lanterns, and destroying the central power battery, which had imprisoned Parallax. See what the fear entity did there? Yeah. He was eventually set free of Parallax's possession when the Spectre bonded to Jordan's infected soul and expelled the entity from him. And at number 9, Barry Allen. Accidentally almost destroying the world counts on this list, which means Barry Allen finds himself making an appearance at this number, thanks to Flashpoint. The Flashpoint story arc came out in 2011, and featured Barry in an alternate timeline that only he was aware of. He wakes up one day to discover that his mother is still alive, his father was never framed for her death, Superman is seemingly non-existent, and a lot of our favorite heroes are pretty villainous, with Wonder Woman and Aquaman on a warpath that has caused much of Europe to be destroyed and has killed millions. There is no Justice League. Batman is Thomas Wayne, and Martha Wayne became the Joker, and Bruce was the one who was shot and killed in that alleyway. Dark, right? In order to save the previous timeline, Barry must travel back in time, ultimately causing the hero to sacrifice his own happiness and lose his mother yet again in order to set things right. It also caused the reset of the DC Universe, which caused the New 52 reset, which was, until recently, believed to be the Flash's fault. But turns out it was actually Dr. Manhattan's doing all along. Gotta love a retcon that retcons the retcon. Up next, number 8, Black Bolt. The Inhuman King, Black Bolt, is generally perceived as a force of good, and for the most part he is. But his powers have the capacity to destroy whole planets at full strength. Black Bolt has a destructive hypersonic voice and can manipulate particles. A whisper of his can be utterly devastating, and a shout could cause earth-shattering effects. That's not all though. After Secret Invasion and a crossover event called War of Kings, he went a little mad, and put not only the Earth, but all the Inhumans that he ruled and other civilizations at great risk. He decided to go after the Kree Empire himself, with whom the Inhumans had long-time beef, and declared war on them. After defeating Ronan the Accuser, he took over the Kree Empire as its ruler. Then he decided to go after the Shi'ar Empire, which was ruled by Vulcan, leading to devastating effects, only stopped by a bomb detonating and making readers presume that Black Bolt was dead. Spoiler, he came back. And at 7, the Hulk as Maestro. In 1992, The Incredible Hulk Future Imperfect was released, which featured a Hulk from an alternate future who possessed Banner's intelligence and the Hulk's more sinister personality traits. This was the Maestro. He possesses the same powers as the Hulk, but is more experienced and has absorbed a century's worth of radiation thanks to the fallout from nuclear wars on Earth, the same wars that pretty much decimated the planet, allowing for him to claim leadership over it. He is a tyrant and even goes as far as breaking the 616 Hulk's neck, which gives him some time to show him around his Earth in an attempt to convince the younger version to join him. All in all, this version of the Hulk took advantage of the destroyed Earth and made an even worse one out of it. And at 6, Professor X as Onslaught. Professor X is one of the most honorable and respectable characters in Marvel's roster of heroes, but because of how he restricts himself, there have been instances in which he's accidentally put the Earth at risk. This includes a time when part of him became corrupted and transformed into Onslaught. If you're unfamiliar with the storyline that occurred in 1996, during a battle against Magneto and his acolytes, Xavier used his powers to shut down Magneto's mind, forcing the Master of Magnetism to become catatonic. While this occurred, the darkest aspect of Magneto's mind would escape into Charles' subconscious, merging with Xavier's darker nature to grow into a separate persona with psychic omnipotence that was considered an Omega-level mutant. He went out, conquered Manhattan, and eventually grew so powerful that he became a being of pure psionic energy, and all the other heroes in the Marvel Universe who weren't X-Men had to charge into him, absorb his energy, and then get killed, except they were put into a pocket universe by Franklin Richards, cause yay, comics, and then this began the Heroes Reborn saga, which a lot of people hated. All in all, Xavier was bad. Moving on to number 5, Parallax. Parallax is a cosmic entity who could easily take over a planet and cause its destruction. Now, fear is Parallax's jam. It has massive fear-casting and mind control abilities that can take hold of the likes of Superman, Wonder Woman, and even Spectre. Only those who can conquer their inner fear completely are able to evade its grasp. Now, if someone feels the slightest bit of fear, Parallax can take possession of their body. It has no true physical form, generally transforming into a form that will instill its targets with fear. So imagine what abilities like that could do if Parallax wanted to see a world crumble, and no superheroes the likes of Green Lantern or Batman were around to prevent it from doing such. Yeah, that's scary. And at 3, Jean Grey. Jean Grey is one of the most iconic X-Men characters of all time. But during the Phoenix Saga, or rather the Dark Phoenix Saga, after Jean is exposed to the deadly radiation of a solar flare, she is bonded to the Phoenix entity, although at the time it wasn't a separate entity. It was later established via retcon to alleviate Jean of her sins while she was under its possession. Girl committed genocide after consuming a star, so yeah, you can see why they would want to retcon that a little bit. But it could have been much worse than a handful of retcons and Jean dying a bunch of times. This is evident from one of Marvel's What If stories. From issue 21, volume 1, What If Phoenix Had Not Died? It's a tale that takes a slightly different approach to the beginning of the Phoenix Saga, except it sees Jean Grey going on a rampage at Xavier's mansion, killing a bunch of mutants, including Cyclops, and ultimately the Phoenix Force consumes her and the world, expanding outwards into the universe and basically gobbling up everything in its reach. So yeah, to suggest that on Earth 616 this could have been a reality is actually no understatement. And at 2, Cyclops. Speaking of the Phoenix Force, let's talk about another time it possessed someone and almost destroyed the Earth. We're talking with Cyclops and his Phoenix 5. During Avengers vs. X-Men in 2012, Iron Man would split up the Phoenix Force, causing it to possess multiple individuals who would then call themselves the Phoenix 5. This included Cyclops, who led the team, Emma Frost, Namor, Magik, and Colossus. Together they built a new utopia, a floating fortress, a haven for mutants. The Avengers, though, didn't trust them, and sought to rescue Hope Summers from Utopia. They almost failed if it wasn't for Scarlet Witch's intervention. This prompted Scott to want to hunt down the Avengers, and during these events, eventually all of the Phoenix's power transferred to him. Charles Xavier attempted to stop Scott, but instead, Scott murdered him, fully becoming the Dark Phoenix. He then began to cause havoc across the globe, including earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and fire raining from the sky. Eventually he is depowered after taking an ass whooping by Hope and Scarlet Witch. And finally, in at number 1, Molecule Man. Here we have a character who is constantly threatening to destroy the world, simply by existing. Molecule Man is an incredibly powerful character created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby back in 1963. He is capable of molecular manipulation and reality warping, the latter occurring on a multiversal scale. It was revealed in Secret Wars Volume 2, Issue 9 that Molecule Man, aka Owen Reese, is a multiversal composite entity who is a single creature that manifests fractions of its entire being in each universe within the Marvel multiverse. You might see where this is going. So, how did Owen almost destroy the world? Well, actually, he almost destroyed the multiverse. This occurred when he duked it out with the Beyonder, and their battle took place in more than 3 spatial dimensions, threatening to completely obliterate the multiverse itself. We would later learn that the primary function of Reese was to serve as a living bomb, one capable of destroying the entire universe that he inhabits if he dies for any reason, which was a deliberate design crafted by the Beyonders, also the ones who place a slice of him into each universe simultaneously. The less divided he is across the multiverse, the more mentally unstable and dangerous Reese becomes. Yikes.
In at number 10, Cyclops. We all like to poke fun at Scott Summers every now and again, but we should actually appreciate just how nice this overpowered superhero is. It would be a rare occasion if Cyclops just decided his new mission was to destroy the entire universe. That being said, he definitely could do some serious damage if he were ever to lose control of his powers. As white bread as he looks, many should fear the mutant because of his lack of control over his optic blasts. After losing his ruby quartz visor, which keeps these powers in check, Cyclops has proven he could level a city just by accident. We've even seen the mutant vaporize one of Wolverine's hands, proving that he could even break through adamantium. If he went rogue, the universe wouldn't stand a chance. In at number 9, Legion. David Haller is an odd duck for sure, and some may not consider him to be a superhero, but hey, if Professor X is your dad, we're putting you on this list. David has the ability to develop specific mutations at a moment's notice, and combined with the character's split personality with each power, he is one scary overpowered superhero. On one occasion where Legion had manifested his powers, he absorbed the personality traits of a terrorist leader. If that's not enough of a red flag, let's not forget the rampage that he went on, traveling back in time to kill Magneto and his father, again by accident. Thankfully, David now has a neural switchboard wristband that gives him more control over these powers without the personality side influencing his decisions. But if he ever wanted to though, Legion would be more than capable of destroying the universe. In at number 8, Scarlet Witch. Wanda's history as a superhero is pretty all over the place. In Avengers Age of Ultron, her and her brother Quicksilver were teaming up with the out-of-control AI and proved that she was a force to be reckoned with. Once she sided with the Avengers, we felt a little better about the Scarlet Witch utilizing her powers to the fullest. However, that being said, Wanda has been able to rewrite reality as seen in House of M, where she teamed up with Doctor Doom to bring her children back into existence. This did not come without consequences though. Upon undertaking this enormous task, the Scarlet Witch summoned this cosmic force which completely took over her and her powers. This moment of complete loss of control should scare us to our core. Wanda can essentially alter reality to become whatever she wants. Now whether that's used for the betterment of society is up to her. If she ever believed the destruction of the universe would be a better starting point than the current reality, she'd be more than capable of seeing that plan through. In at number 7, Raven.
What do you don't stop? You win! I surrender! What's the matter? Afraid of the dark? I surrender!
Meditation and a cold demeanor are perhaps the only things keeping this scary overpowered superhero from just taking a wrecking ball to the universe. Born half human, half demon, Raven has to balance the negatives of both many times. Her demon roots have bestowed her with some unimaginable powers, but her human side negatively impacts these whenever her emotions get out of control. In the Teen Titans episode titled Switched, we really got a taste of just how connected her emotions and powers really are when Starfire took over Raven's body, using it to cause destruction via those out of control emotions. In terms of the destruction of our universe, if Raven's psychic and magical powers aligned with an emotion of, say, anger or vengeance, it could certainly be our demise. In at number 6, Thor. We've all seen just how powerful Thor can be in the MCU, but while they primarily focus his powers and abilities on saving the universe, we rarely get to see just how much destruction he could do without trying to save the universe. Thor not only wields the mythical Norse hammer Mjolnir, but also has a vast collection of powers that makes him very overpowered. Along with summoning lightning bolts, breaking spells, and opening interdimensional portals, Thor once lifted the Midgard serpent. Let that settle in for a moment. The serpent is believed to weigh the equivalent of half the Earth, and he just straight up tossed that snake into space. Not only does he possess these abilities, but at this point in his superhero career, he's mastered them to the point of godlike standards. Plus, his hammer can be utilized to channel the God Force, which has been said to be so strong it could kill an immortal being. Yeah, so how well does the fate of the universe look against someone that could do all of that? The answer is not good, my friends. Not good. In at number 5, the Silver Surfer.
Everywhere this thing goes, 8 days later, the planet dies. All that you know is at an end.
When the Silver Surfer arrived on Earth, the Fantastic Four rightfully saw him as a villain. Even though he turned out to be trying to do good and, save his family, one cannot forget that as the Herald for Galactus, he used to help devour whole planets. If anyone is on their way to being the one that could destroy the universe, it'd be the guy that took an internship for destroying the universe. Norrin's ability to just navigate anywhere in the universe and travel at near limitless speeds gives him a real advantage for being able to pick off planets easily if he just undertook a new mission of, being the sole destroyer of everything that we know. Especially after being a slave to Galactus but managing to control his cosmic abilities later on, the Silver Surfer should be seen even more as a threat to the universe. In at number 4, Jean Grey.
Unleash your power! Let go, Jean! Jean, let go!
The Phoenix Force has possessed many throughout its time in the Marvel Universe, but no one terrified us more than when Jean Grey became a host. With Jean infused with the power of the Dark Phoenix, her abilities were fully unleashed, reaching new heights than ever before. They weren't just unleashed though, they were vastly out of her control. Instead of having a grip on her powers, this cosmic force began to dictate her actions. The scariest part of the Phoenix Force is that it can take apart anything at a molecular level and then absorb it and project said energy. That being said, if Jean wanted to dust our little universe, all she would need to do is consume the energy of a sun and it's lights out, game over from there. In at number 3, Dr. Manhattan.
Something lethal. Or if I know what that means.
Jonathan Osterman is by far one of the DC Universe's most powerful beings, and in the film The Watchmen we saw exactly what he was capable of doing. They showed so much of what he was capable. His abilities are pretty much unlimited, meaning that there's not much that he can't do. If in all of his omnipotent glory he decided today was the day the universe ended, he could finish that task in no time, and then just rebuild everything from scratch, with still time to make lunch. Dr. Manhattan is totally invulnerable to any and all harm, plus in collaboration with his teleportation abilities, he could just pop in and out of any universe to destroy it. Dare I say he could destroy not just the universe, but all of the universes. If you don't believe us, look at the effect that he had on the DC universe alone. His altering of reality and Rebirth completely erased 10 years from the DC, resulting in the New 52 timeline. That's you, Dr. Manhattan. In at number 2, Professor X. We've always understood Charles Xavier to be this powerful mutant that usually uses his powers for assisting younger mutants in their journey of understanding themselves and controlling the destruction that they're capable of. In the comic books, Professor X typically exhibits this precise control over his telepathy, but in the film Logan we were able to see how his powers would affect the world if he lost control. Logan had to keep him far away from civilization so that his unstable state wouldn't harm anyone. And with all of that in mind, it's amazing that Charles has been able to not destroy the universe. Grant Morrison and Mark Miller, though, actually pitched a story that involved Charles turning evil in Marvel Tales' End of the World. This saw him becoming corrupted by a mistake in Cerebro's programming and ultimately merging together to form an uber powerful being called X-Terminus. If X-Terminus ever came to fruition, there would have been no stopping him from eliminating the entire Marvel universe. Calm down, DC fanboys, it's not happening. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Superman. If you're a fan of Superman, you probably also disagree with this flawed view that he is the most bland superhero out there. Superman is scary overpowered, and there's been enough bone-chilling versions of him to prove this point. Superman is so strong that if he wanted to, he could just straight up push the Earth into the sun. And the Superman Prime version actually did see Superman destroying a universe. After getting lost in the multiverse after the Sinestro Corpse War, Sup started planet hopping looking for Earth Prime, and when he found a reality that wasn't up to his standards, he just destroyed it, like an Etch-a-Sketch. In Countdown to Final Crisis, where he fought against Monarch, he apparently found this perfect version of Earth. However, by the time that he got there, Monarch and his army had already destroyed the majority of the planet. This did not sit well with Superman Prime, leading him to tear apart Monarch's armor, releasing his quantum powers and unleashing the complete destruction of the entire universe. Oh, and there was that time that he sneezed and destroyed a universe.
Number 10, Batarangs. Now I know Batarangs are Bruce's go-to signature item, and one that people don't make fun of when it comes to having the word bat in front of it. It's not bat shark repellent or the bat rope. But let's be real, the one part of Batman vs Superman BVS that was pretty accurate is how a Batarang would damage you. You would be crippled or scarred pretty severely. Plus, does he go back and collect them all? Cause if not, they're just gonna be in the city. It isn't like Spider-Man's weapon which dissolves. These would be around and criminals would use them. In Shazam it was shown that Freddy had one as a collectible, so kids playing with Batarangs. Bruce did not think this through. They're sharp, pointy, taking eyes out. God, I want one. I wonder what they would be worth if you melted them down. I have too many plans. See, they need to be destroyed. Number 9, the Cosmic Treadmill. The Cosmic Treadmill first appeared in 1961 in The Flash 125 and was created so that Barry Allen could time travel. He would run on it really fast and generate a portal and get where he needed to go. It's how he met the Reverse Flash pre-Crisis. He lived in the 30th century with Iris pre-Crisis. This is Crisis on Infinite Earths. How is this a weapon, you may be asking? The Flash can alter the timeline at will with this thing. We all live at his mercy. What's changed? We don't know. We'll never know. Only the Flash knows. The Cosmic Treadmill would vanish for a bit, and the idea would be that the Flashes could just tap into the Speed Force directly and just run so fast they could change time without exercise equipment. But then Rebirth brought it back when Batman and Barry were investigating the button. What did they use to find the whole Dr. Manhattan connection? The Cosmic Treadmill. And look what a mess that storyline has turned into. Sure, we could blame the artist's delays, but that treadmill is shifty. Don't let heroes just have access to the time stream. It's dangerous. Number 8, Ant-Man suits. Shrinking is not something that everyone can handle. There's a mental component to changing size that is oftentimes flirted with but rarely examined. The Ant-Man suit is one of those devices that is, well, only as good as the person using it, and if they snap, you have a very dangerous person on your hands. We can also extend this over to DC with the Atom suit. Look what happened in Identity Crisis when Jean Loring got her hands on one and ended up killing Sue Dibney, the wife of the Elongated Man. This was because she wanted her husband, or ex-husband, the Atom, back. Look at Eric O'Grady back over at Marvel. He stole an Ant-Man suit so he could creep on ladies in the shower. Look at Hank, who suffered a psychotic break and thought he was Yellow Jacket and then had all of these abilities. Also those weird panels where they used it in bed and that was a thing, size kink, it happened. It's just you really need to trust a person with a suit like this, and with so many other heroes, maybe okay, still useful, just be careful. Look out in the shower, they're out there. Number 7, the Phantom Zone Projector. This was a punishment device from Krypton. Criminals were sent to the Phantom Zone, a pocket universe created by Jor-El, Superman's father. The projector, which allowed the users to send people into this pocket space, has found its way to Superman. The people in the Phantom Zone can see the regular universe, but not interact with it. But they can still plan, looking at you, Zod. You can also send people there as a stasis thing to keep them alive, like what happened with Mon-El, but then you have to hang out with all the criminals too. Here's the thing, this is a lot of power, and Superman's Fortress of Solitude isn't the most secure. Lots of people know where it is, and this device has fallen into the wrong hands. Plus there's the whole moral and ethical question of using it. This is maybe a device that the DC Universe could do without. Also in the modern era, it can tend to be a bit of a Deus Ex Phantom Zone, an easy solution for narrative awkwardness. Where was this person? Phantom Zone. Number 6, the Lasso of Truth. Wonder Woman's Lasso of Truth is an iconic part of her character, way more so than say her invisible jet. This weapon first appeared in Sensation Comics number 6 back in 1942, and this lasso compels the person who is trapped within its confines, or as it would later expand to just touching it, to tell the truth. Now this is useful, but depending upon your Wonder Woman depiction, it has been used as an instrument of torture. For example, in the now cult classic famous TV pilot for Wonder Woman, the series commissioned in 2011 that never went anywhere, wherein there is a particularly brutal Wonder Woman who tortures a criminal in the hospital, and then forces the truth out of him using her lasso. She also really snaps a guy's neck with it, so in character then. It's intense. Also, it's been shown to be dangerous if someone breaks free of the lasso. For example, in Superman Red Son, in this story she's involved in a relationship with Superman, and in a fight she gets tangled in it and he tells her to break free, and she does, but it breaks her spirit and damages her, aging her and rendering her unstable. This has so much potential to be abused, and I love Wonder Woman, but she goes hard. Pants to be darkened. Shout out to all the people who get that reference. Where are my people who love to watch failed pilots at? Number 5, the Eye of Agamotto. This first appeared in Strange Tales number 115 back in 1963. So the eye is presented to the Sorcerer Supreme, which most of the time means Doctor Strange, but that can mean whoever it is, so for example Loki or Doctor Doom. And this amulet has a lot of power. It's the eye that allows you to see through disguises, it can weaken demons, but here's the thing, it can also probe minds and create portals to other dimensions. That's a lot. And would we not be safer as a planet if we cut ourselves off from some of these mystical elements? We need a designated person to keep them at bay. That's a huge responsibility. Why must Earth be the epicenter for weirdness and darkness? There are so many other planets and dimensions out there. We will share. Sharing is caring. Number 4, Iron Man's sentient suit. There is a terrifying arc in the 1998 run of Iron Man that is often referenced in passing but not fully dived into. People are often like, oh, well his armor came to life and fell in love with him, haha. No, this was terrifying. His armor was an abusive boyfriend. It killed in his name. It killed Whiplash as he cried in the sky saying he just wanted to get his kid out of foster care. The armor felt that it was a better Iron Man than Tony ever had been because it was willing to go the extra mile. And it pulled the whole, if you don't like the way I am, then look in the mirror. It took Tony to an island and trapped him there, torturing him, trying to get them to re-merge, all while continuing duties as Iron Man. And people didn't connect the dots because this was the era when Tony still had a secret identity. Iron Man was supposedly his bodyguard. This armor killed itself when Tony started to suffer a massive heart attack. This saved him for reasons that were explained in later issues. But this armor was terrifying. No sentient armors for Tony. Number 3, the Cosmic Cube. Now the Cosmic Cube can be used by anyone, but really it should be used by no one. This cube, called the Tesseract in the MCU, can be used to alter reality. For years it was just kind of an item, it was floating around, but then Hydra Cap, its most infamous moment. This happened when the Red Skull, meddling with the cube, decided that Captain America had always been a Hydra agent, and the cube made it so and created a whole new reality. Anything reality altering should just be locked away and destroyed, because the temptation is there, someone is going to crack, and it's scarier if it's a hero, because then you get the whole, oh, this was for the greater good because I know what's best. Everybody, I'm a hero. Sit down, Reed. Number 2, the Infinity Gauntlet. Speaking of Reed, so in the comic verse, the Infinity Gauntlet can be wielded by anyone, but the thing is, it corrupts. That much power needs to not be wielded by one person. This was the mindset of the superhero team, the Illuminati, which decided to try and prevent crimes first, so kinda in the underbelly. They set out to gather all the gems for the gauntlet, which Reed just had cause sketch. And he then attempted to wish it out of reality, but he couldn't because it needs to exist. So he gave a stone to each member of the Illuminati for safekeeping. Here's the thing, in their actions of hunting down these gems, it was a catalyst for the Skrull secret invasion, which was a huge disaster in the Marvel Universe. Heroes' quests to control this gauntlet have led to disaster, as have villains getting their hands on it. It's unfortunate that it has to exist, but maybe it could be sent to another dimension. It's been proven it doesn't work in other universes, such as when Darkseid from DC got his hands on it. He couldn't do anything because it had no power in the DC universe. And finally, in at number 1, the Ultimate Nullifier. This first appeared in Fantastic Four number 50 back in 1966. Johnny Storm took it from the home of Galactus, Eater of Worlds. It's a handheld device that didn't seem to do anything except freak out Galactus. Reed used it to threaten him and bargain with him to not eat the Earth. It is apparently the universe's most devastating weapon. It can destroy any target, but also the user if they're not concentrating enough. It can also destroy timelines or erase the entire multiverse, and Reed had it. It was just chilling in his basement, along with the portals to the negative zone. This is a dangerous item, and I'm convinced the only reason more people don't seek it out is because they don't know about it. Also, it's kind of narratively hard to write. No one should have this. It should be destroyed, and it can be, unlike the Gauntlet. I see you, Reed. Power move.
Coming in at number 10, we've got a bit of an honorable mention with Franklin Richards, as he's not quite old enough to be a proper superhero yet, but man oh man is he ever powerful. Initially believed to be one of the most powerful mutants in all of existence as the son of Mr. Fantastic and the Invisible Woman, it was eventually revealed that Franklin's reality warping powers were so great that he'd altered his own X gene in the past to give an origin story to his own incredible powers. Capable of creating entire universes like some sort of young human celestial, Franklin Richards is one of the most powerful reality manipulators in the entire Marvel Universe. Coming in at number 9, we have Captain Atom. Originally a scientific volunteer named Nathaniel Atom, Nathaniel chose to take part in experiments at a research facility called the Continuum. Originally meant to pilot a special dimensional transfer vehicle during a cross-dimension experiment, Nathaniel was seemingly blown apart and atomized by radiation during the experiment, only to reappear moments later as an energy-based life form. Captain Atom's powers seem almost godlike to an extent, capable of manipulating matter and all of the energy fields associated with it, but with the Captain frequently needing to return to the Continuum whenever he'd begin having issues with remaining corporeal or maintaining control of his powers. And while the Justice League doesn't ally with him often given the potential danger of his radioactive abilities, he really knows how to pack an atomic punch when he's needed. Coming in at number 8, we have Iceman, aka Bobby Drake. As one of the earliest members of the X-Men, Bobby has had a lot of time over the years to explore his powers, and contrary to appearances, he can do far more than just convert his body into ice. Classified as an Omega level mutant, the most powerful designation there is, Iceman is capable of not only controlling the temperature of all his own molecules, but is able to manipulate water molecules entirely as part of his own mass. This means the possibility for Bobby's powers are as intense and malleable as water itself, allowing him to freeze the blood within enemies' veins, travel instantly through a stream of water, or even cause another ice age if Bobby didn't hold back his full strength. Coming in at number 7, we've got to go with Barry Allen, aka The Flash. Barry's powers come from a deep connection to the Speed Force. He's not simply capable of moving extremely fast like many superheroes, but is actually using energy from the very concept of speed itself. The Speed Force allows Barry to travel at practically limitless rates, racing any potential adversary, and even allowing the Flash to travel through time and even alternate realities, moving so fast that he's capable of whizzing right past these fundamental laws of reality. Add enhanced senses and a whole lot of other perks to the Flash's power set, and he stands out as one of the most well-rounded and powerful members of the Justice League. Coming in at number 6, we have Thor Odinson, the God of Thunder. While several Marvel and DC superheroes have godlike powers, Thor is one of the very few that counts as a literal god. Having protected both Midgard and Asgard for thousands upon thousands of years, Thor has been able to hold off the Hulk in single combat, teamed up with a millennia's worth of his own selves to defeat Gore the God Butcher, and been able to both wield and reforge the unstoppable hammer, Mjolnir. Combined with eons of combat experience and the strength of Asgard flowing through his veins, and Thor is a hero that'll continue to be one of the most overpowered protectors of Earth for many thousands of years to come. Coming in at number 5, we have Robert Reynolds, aka the Sentry. For years, the Sentry has been one of the physically strongest Avengers, claiming to wield the strength of 1,000,000 exploding suns. But with all of these powers comes the major downside of the Void, a representation of Robert's negative personality that must be fought against every time he uses his powers. Despite this frequent setback, the Sentry has long been one of the most important members of the Avengers team, iconically dispatching Carnage in a situation when no one else could, and being a last defense against some of the stronger foes that have ever attempted to invade the planet Earth. Coming in at number 4, we have the Man of Steel himself, Superman. The last son of the doomed planet Krypton, Superman is a beacon to the rest of the DC universe, a symbol of how good and hope-inspiring a superhero should be, and he luckily has the power set to back it up. Unless kryptonite or magic is involved, Superman can practically do anything, and the limits of his strength seem to only be self-imposed ones so that he doesn't literally shatter the planet with each punch. But even with all of this power, Superman never wavers in his quest for truth and justice, and remains a steadfast inspiration for everyone. All of that power and the world's most hopeful outlook? That's one hell of an overpowered combination. Coming in at number 3, we have Dr. Manhattan. The only being from the Watchmen universe with actual superpowers, Dr. Manhattan's powers compensate for his uniqueness by making him nearly unstoppable. Capable of seeing the entire timeline of existence at once, Dr. Manhattan has such godlike power that he could barely relate to being human at all anymore, and seems capable of any task he puts his mind to, such as creating an elaborate palace on Mars, to altering the entire course of the DC universe during the events of the New 52. Whatever the future holds for Dr. Manhattan, we can rest assured that he'll be viewing it through an unknowable, different lens than our own. Coming in at number 2, we have Bruce Wayne, aka the Batman. As a member of the Justice League with no actual superpowers, Batman has somehow been able to keep up with aliens, metahumans, and even literal gods, and does such a good job of it that he's considered one of the League's most important and essential members. No matter what situation gets thrown at Batman, whether he's fighting with a team or tremendously outgunned on his own, Batman somehow always manages to save the day and defeat the villain, meaning that one of the most overpowered characters in comic books might just be the guy who technically isn't supposed to have any powers except for being rich and being smart. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the Incredible Hulk. The Hulk has always had one of the most overpowered abilities in the entire Marvel universe, with his literally limitless strength still yet to find a breaking point, but an extra ability that earns the Hulk a top spot on this list is his recently revealed power to be incapable of dying. With all Gamma creatures being connected to the dark being known as the One Below All, the Hulk has gained the ability to rise from the dead at night, even if his Bruce Banner form had only died the previous day. combined with his already incredible talent for healing and regeneration, and the Hulk seems to be more unstoppable than he's ever been in the past.
And at 10, Damien Dark. Okay, so while not actually destroying the world, if Damien Dark from Arrow Season 4 didn't have to be defeated for the plot, he would have very well accomplished his goal. The goal being to get all of his loved ones and some savvy investors into a climate-controlled bubble underneath Star City and live there while the world recovers from him launching every single nuke in the world at once using the Rubicon program from Argus. He had obtained the program and launched all the nukes, however Team Arrow, and more specifically Felicity and Curtis, were able to shut down most of them. The deaths from all over the world would have also given Damien immense power, basically making him immortal. His philosophy was that humanity cannot be saved and that the world in fact required a reset in order to save it. And honestly, I think he's probably right. The world is in desperate need of saving, and I'm all for wiping out the entire human race. I'm okay, I swear. And at 9, Necron. The Blackest Night storyline is probably one of my favorite DC Comics events, with a whole slew of heroes being, for lack of a better term, resurrected using the powers of the Black Lantern rings. Necron is DC's embodiment of death in a sense, at least if you're not a speedster, and he wanted to eliminate all life in the universe, because like I said, that's what all great villains want, right? Like, what's the point of wiping out the universe? Like, what are you gonna do then? Do all villains just want to die? Like, at least Damien Dark had a plan on how to keep himself and his family alive. Why would someone want to destroy everything and everyone, including themselves, or leave like nowhere for them to actually rule over? It just makes no sense to me. Like, if there are no living people and they're all just Black Lanterns under your control, would you really feel like you're in charge? I mean, would you really be having fun? Part of the fun of being the villain is having people to kill or control or subject or whatever you want to do, right? It doesn't make sense to me. Either way, Necron got pretty damn close to seizing control of the universe since, you know, he raised heroes like Superman from the grave. If the White Lanterns didn't exist, he would have won. Let's be honest. And at 8, Annihilus. Annihilus is an interdimensional insectoid conqueror and tyrant hailing from the Negative Zone, a pocket dimension located on Earth 616. When Annihilus discovered the opposing force, the Negative Zone's counterpart, the Power Cosmic, after years of long failed conquests, he finally had the power to fulfill his dreams. With an entity named Ravenous, who at the time wielded this power, he invaded the positive matter universe through a portal known as the Crunch. Many worlds and many heroes fell before his Annihilation Wave. The Annihilation Wave was Annihilus's interdimensional invading force. It was an incredibly powerful force which laid waste to galaxies, slaughtered numerous worlds, and captured or killed cosmic beings. So yeah. And Annihilus came close to accomplishing his goal as well, even taking several Galactus heads, just heads of multiple versions of Galactus. However, he was ultimately unsuccessful, but he came even closer to winning and destroying reality in the What If Annihilation story, which I hope we get to see a version of in the Disney Plus series since it takes place shortly after Civil War. And at 7, Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash in the season premiere of The Flash Season 3 may not have like obliterated the world, but he did end up destroying the world that we knew for the CW verse, and ended up changing the timeline so much that it even affected characters in other shows. In the Season 2 finale, Barry decides to go back in time to save his mother, similar to the Flashpoint storyline. However, this time Wally is the Flash and Barry isn't. However, he starts losing his speed and his memory of an old life, which he thinks is a bad thing. Like, bro, I would give anything to forget my trauma, are you joking? Sorry for me not understanding why you don't want to remember your parents dying, but okay. So he lets Reverse Flash go so that he can set the timeline back. However, unlike in the animated movie, Barry doesn't get stopped in the time stream. Instead, he waits until it's all played out and then boom, kills her after he was originally supposed to, creating a whole new timeline, somehow. Where Joe and Iris don't talk, Cisco's brother is dead, and John Diggle has a son named John Diggle Jr. instead of his daughter Sarah, who he had named after Sarah Lance when she died in Arrow Season 3. So he destroyed the Arrowverse timeline we knew, and that's why he's only at number 7. It's very rare for someone to actually destroy the world, because, you know, what else would there be? And in 6, Aquaman and Wonder Woman. Oh, look at that! I managed to squeeze 2 Flashpoint numbers into this list, hell yeah. In the animated movie The Flashpoint Paradox in the DC animated universe, the world is so much different to its CW counterpart. Mostly due to the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who ended up being the villains of this movie, thanks to them being former lovers while Aquaman was married to Mira, who Wonder Woman then killed when Mira tried to get revenge. But to be fair, she also wears Mira's crown, so it's not really like, oh, it was self-defense. However, this war resulted in the destruction of the planet at the literal moment Barry was able to get enough speed to go back into Speed Force. It was a suspenseful moment where Reverse Flash had just been killed by Batman, so Barry could have enough speed to run back and stop himself from saving his mother. I mean, he managed to get into the Speed Force before the world's destruction caught up with him, but the world was still destroyed, so it's good enough for me. Halfway through and in number 5, the Night King. Oh, what's that? A non-comic villain? Hell yeah it is. The Night King is in essence the big bad evil guy of Game of Thrones. Sure, there's the Game of Thrones that they're playing like chess combined with Risk, but come on, the Night King was the whole first half of the final season. The Night King was the master of the first White Walkers, having existed since the age of the first men. He was also the supreme leader of the Army of the Dead. Because, you know, love that. The Night King was the first man who was captured by a tribe of children of the forest. Leaf, who was amongst the group, pressed a dragon glass dagger into his chest, causing his eyes to turn blue and turning him into the first of the White Walkers. However, the White Walkers soon turn on their creators and become the ruthless rulers of the land beyond the wall. Nobody believes that they exist, and those who see them rarely live to tell the tale. However, come season 8, spoiler alert for the rest of this number now, the worst of all seasons, the Night King finally makes his play on Westeros, and honestly, he should have absolutely won. If George R.R. Martin had really been writing these final scripts, the Night King would have won, and honestly I think that's probably the way that the books are gonna go when/if the final one's completed, because you know, it's George, he's gonna have the bad guy win. In this show, he gets killed by Arya Stark, which should absolutely not have happened, but hey, girl power. I still wanted to see him win though. He should have won. He would have won. And at 4, Thanos. While he may have only wiped out half the universe, Thanos is certainly a guy who destroyed the world. It's not in a literal sense, but wiping out half the population does kind of destroy the world in a more figurative sense. We see it even after 5 years later in the MCU. The world still misses half the population. Everyone lost someone, and that's the drive that causes the heroes to fight back and bring everyone back even after 5 years. I mean, the Avengers literally risked their lives traveling through the quantum realm and time in order to save everyone. Save the billions of people that Thanos destroyed, and honestly, that's why he's on this list. He destroyed the planet by destroying half of life. Sure, he was partially right and the Earth was starting to heal itself, but the people weren't, and I don't think that little bit of good that is coming from that really matters when everyone has lost someone they love. It's pretty damn insane. And not only that, but the world is also destroyed when everyone gets brought back. And while yes, the Avengers are the ones who did the whole resurrection thing, it's Thanos who made it required, who made everyone miserable, and even 5 years later, people still can't get through a date without crying. So, yeah, it's Thanos' fault. And at 3, Surtur. Surtur's purpose was to destroy the world, or I guess technically destroy Asgard, which is a world. Surtur was a significant figure in the prophecy of Ragnarok, as the one who would initiate the fall of Asgard. Seeking to prevent this prophecy though, Odin defeated Surtur thousands of years ago, like 500,000, taking the source of his power, the eternal flame, back to Asgard, and confining Surtur to his own realm, where he remained for over 5,000 years. After Odin went missing following the second Dark Elf conflict though, a weakened Surtur intended to finally start Ragnarok, only to be defeated and killed by Thor. Despite this, Thor realized that Ragnarok had to happen to stop Hela, so Loki resurrected him with the eternal flame and used him to defeat Hela and destroying Asgard. The fire demon obviously fulfilled his prophecy and destroyed Asgard along with Hela and himself in the process. At least this is realistic. At least Surtur knows that he's gonna die when he destroys the world. So I mean, like, he did actually destroy a world. Like, he destroyed one of the realms, so he fulfilled the prophecy. So hell yeah, I'm including him on this list. I love a man who's willing to go down with his cause. Penultimately, in at number 2, Abraxas. Abraxas is in essence the embodiment of destruction in the Marvel Universe. This guy wanted to destroy the multiverse and everyone in it just for funsies. When the Galactus of the Prime Reality died, Abraxas soon began to just cut through various alternate realities. He also killed off other versions of the Galactus because, you know, he could. Abraxas used the head of one of these Galactuses. Galactus? Galacti? I actually think Galacti sounds better, because Galactus sounds like cactus. Anyway, he used this head to home in on the main continuity's Earth and to plant a mole in the form of an alternate universe version of Harold Nova, who was dead in their reality. On Earth though, Abraxas attacked the Watcher and stole half of his signature medallion. Abraxas then taunted the Fantastic Four with the inevitability of his arrival, enticing them to search for the ultimate nullifier, which he was actually looking for, the clues to the location of which were scattered among realities. The Fantastic Four actually did find the ultimate nullifier, and then Abraxas showed up and stole it from them, because that's what he wanted all along. Using this nullifier, Abraxas was going to wipe out reality, and honestly, if it worked for plot and basically the godchild that is Franklin Richards, he would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for you meddling kids and your damn sister. Finally, in at number 1, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor is probably the most successful villain on this list and maybe ever when it comes to destroying the world. The Anti-Monitor ended up destroying all worlds pretty much. The purpose of the Crisis on Infinite Earths event that the Anti-Monitor was created for was to get rid of the DC multiverse in the comics and squeeze everyone down to one world. And the purpose remained largely the same for the CW crossover of the same name, even if it was also to kill off Oliver Queen. But the Anti-Monitor, while not successful in his goal of replacing that universe with the Antimatter universe, did destroy basically infinite Earths. Like, if we think about it, there are infinite Earths in that multiverse, meaning that the Anti-Monitor somehow destroyed infinity, which is frickin' nuts. In the CW crossover, he literally destroyed every single Earth, including Earth 1. So this guy, or alien, or whatever they are, ended up actually destroying infinity. Like, what does that even mean? Can we even quantify that? It should be impossible. Technically, there also should be Earths that the Anti-Monitor can't touch, because if there's one Earth that the antimatter wave hits, technically, going off the many worlds theory, there should be another Earth where the antimatter wave doesn't touch it. So forget the Flashpoint paradox, try the Anti-Monitor paradox. There you go.
Number 10, Purple Man. Purple Man is one of those villains who appears unstoppable because if you try to stop him, he can kinda just command you to stop what you are doing and even potentially kill yourself. Dr. Doom ended up using his powers to rule the entire world, which makes his power set kinda crazy. However, it does have at least somewhat of a limitation or weakness, which is nice. Those with indomitable will, such as Dr. Doom himself, can resist the influence of Purple Man's pheromone-based abilities. Also, in theory, if you can't breathe in the pheromones, then his powers have no effect on you. Still, even with his weaknesses, in the Jessica Jones Netflix series, they did a good job of making the Purple Man, or Kilgrave as he's known, played by David Tennant, feel like an unconquerable foe and a horrific threat. Number 9, Griever at the End of All Things. The Griever at the End of All Things was a villain who randomly shows up in Fantastic Four in 2018. She claimed her purpose was to survive beyond the edge of existence and mourn its loss when everything had finally come to an end. For some reason, she did not like the fact that the Future Foundation was attempting to create new universes using Molecule Man's help. She felt they were taking on a role that was greater than them. She had just been introduced when she managed to obliterate Molecule Man, who was previously known for being an indestructible and very capable villain before all of this, overpowering in his own right. And yes, this random villain, who has only thus far appeared in 3 issues, handily defeated him. Hopefully we'll see more of her because she was given so much power right off the bat that it would be weird to have her kill Molecule Man, tie her to the existence and death of everything, and then just never have her pop up again. Her and her weird buff tardigrade looking minions known as Endlings. At least they look like scary versions of tardigrades to me. Number 8, Juggernaut. I really appreciate just how overpowered Juggernaut really is. To really appreciate just how overpowered Juggernaut really is, you have to understand who he is first. Juggernaut is really Kane Marco, the son of Dr. Kurt Marco. Kurt would later become the stepfather to Charles Xavier, making Charles Kane's brother when Charles's mother Sharon married Kane's father. While Charles is a powerful telepathically powered mutant, Kane is not. He's just a regular guy. That is, until he accepts the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, which grants him unlimited amounts of strength, durability, and stamina. He is rendered immortal with the gem's powers and is therefore unstoppable in a fight. Only entire superpowered armies or insanely powerful enemies are really able to disable him, which is pretty crazy considering at the end of the day, he's just a guy with a gem. Number 7, Carnage. It's funny how we all thought Cletus Cassidy had maybe finally kicked the bucket a few times over the years, and yet he's often just come back instead stronger and even more crazy. His character transformation really serves the point I was trying to make earlier of how in comics it always feels like writers are trying to outdo themselves. Cletus went from being a crazy serial killer who is already fairly dangerous and terrifying on his own to being merged with the young symbiotic offspring of Venom, Carnage. Combined, they wreaked so much havoc and mayhem that Venom and Spider-Man were forced to team up in an attempt to handle the villain. In Absolute Carnage, resurrected Cletus bonded with the Grendel symbiote to create a new and improved, even more terrifying symbiotic army which threatened to awaken the big, cosmic, symbiotic big bad known as Null, the first god of the Abyss and the god of symbiotes. During the Absolute Carnage event, Carnage terrorized the entire Spider-Verse and Marvelverse when he worked to track down and hunt any and all characters who had ever bonded to a symbiote, which, it turns out, is quite a lot of people. Number 6. Apocalypse. He's a really hard one to beat because he's always evolving. When evolution is your mutant power, it means you can alter your physiology to become ever stronger, ever more invincible, and ever more powerful, which is exactly what Apocalypse does. Add in the fact that he also used celestial technology to modify his body, and you have a foe who is virtually undefeatable. Basically, you join Apocalypse or you die. There isn't a lot of wiggle room usually. Fortunately, right now he's more on the good side, working with those he'd normally oppose to ensure the survival of mutants in a much less violent way than normal for him. Thank goodness, because even with all the mutants of the world coming together now, Apocalypse is still not an enemy they'd be able to easily deal with. Number 5. Super Skrulls. I mean, even if we're just talking about regular Skrulls, they're pretty overpowered in terms of all that they can accomplish. Skrulls are an alien race with the ability to shapeshift, allowing them to infiltrate the ruling government and military forces of a planet. But Skrulls didn't stop there. When Skrulls were first introduced in the Fantastic Four in the 60s, one thing they couldn't do was adapt to a being's superpowered abilities. That didn't stop them though from using technology to try and emulate the powers of the Fantastic Four, however, as they impersonated them. That didn't stop them though from using technology to try and emulate the powers of the Fantastic Four, however, as they still tried to impersonate them. In the end though, their technology and not so ingenious plan was their downfall, and the FF won the day, outsmarted them, and thwarted a Skrull invasion of planet Earth. Years later though, we learn of Super Skrulls, who succeeded where their ancestors had failed. These are Skrulls who are given specific superpowers which also allow them to infiltrate the ranks of Earth's superheroes, eventually creating mass paranoia among the superhero community. As if there wasn't already enough mass paranoia with just regular Skrulls. Number 4. Galactus. When Galactus comes for you, you better hope you have someone powerful on your side. Like Squirrel Girl. No, I'm not joking. In the unbeatable Squirrel Girl series from 2015, Squirrel Girl ends up taking on the big, hungry cosmic threat herself and ends up preventing him from feeding on the life energy of the Earth. Surprisingly, Squirrel Girl is also OP in her own way. The thing about Galactus is although he's filled with the power cosmic, which makes him nigh undefeatable in most cases, it also makes him super hungry. He burns a lot of calories just existing, which is why he is forced to feed on planets. His need to feed makes him a villain because he opposes our hero's main objective, which is usually to protect the universe or the Earth, but it also means that his intent isn't primarily malicious. The guy is just hungry. And while he is a literal massive threat, because he's massive, he's also needed to ensure balance in the cosmos. So he's kind of both a villain and a neutral figure, and sometimes a hero. Number 3. Thanos. Now of course Thanos in the comics is still a big deal, but in the MCU I feel like they really beefed him up even more. So much so that a lot of people compare Thanos to Darkseid. Thanos is kind of like Marvel's Darkseid equivalent, even in the comics, sure, but the MCU really lifted him up to be on the same level as DC's Darkseid and make him once again worthy of that comparison. Thanos is also obviously super overpowered in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because he is armed with the Infinity Gauntlet and wielding all 5 Infinity Stones. If you can survive doing so, makes almost any character unstoppable. But even in the comics, when Thanos has not been armed with the gauntlet, he has managed to decimate entire planets and threaten the existence of life on Earth and throughout the universe time and time again. It's the Mad Titan's strong will and determination, as well as his physical might and prowess, that makes him so deadly, not the Infinity Gauntlet necessarily, whether or not he has it in the comics or the MCU. Strong without it. Number 2. Phalanx. The Phalanx are believed to be the creator of the Technarchy. They're an alien race that flies around assimilating planets, draining them of all their energy and absorbing all their resources and knowledge. Once your planet is infected, there is not much that can be done. They will either kill you or have you join them. They often destroy planets by infecting them with the techno-organic virus, which spreads and attracts the Technarchy, who don't even know that they are pawns of the Phalanx and were created by them. What's more, once infected, there is not much you can do at all to defend yourself against that virus, unless you are an Omega level telekinetic mutant like Cable, which, you know, most people aren't. Number 1. Mephisto. Mephisto is one of the biggest, most overpowered villains around. He can alter reality, trap you in another dimension, is a master manipulator and deal maker. He's basically Marvel's version of the devil. In fact, Mephisto is pretty content with being compared to or referred to as the devil, although he is yet to be confirmed as the devil itself and is instead believed to be just an extremely powerful demon. And I mean extremely powerful. To highlight just how powerful, we are going to talk about the latest issue of 2018's Avengers, issue number 34, which just came out. So, spoilers ahead. Warning, warning! Moon Knight has been up to some pretty suspicious activity recently in preparation for what will be, from what the Moon God Khonshu has shared with Mark Spector, some great threat. It turns out this OP threat was none other than Mephisto, or at least Mephisto was a part of it. And it took all the powers and relics that Moon Knight had taken from other heroes in order for him to defeat Mephisto once and for all, apparently. But, you know, we'll see. Not even Khonshu himself seems pretty confident in that. While Mephisto's powers may have strange restrictions, dying in mortality has not been known to be a weakness of his in the past, and overpowered villains who are defeated or who die in comics are usually more likely to return even more powerful than stay dead. In at number 10, Ebony Maw. Starting off our list is a character who could bring a civilization to its feet not by using physical strength, but by using his massive intellect and cunning. Ebony Maw first appeared in the comics in New Avengers issue 8 in 2013, with a full appearance in Infinity issue 1 that came out that same month. He is one of Thanos' Black Order, who has a genius level intellect, telepathy, telekinesis, flight, and mind control powers. That latter ability can be used in severely deadly ways, especially if Maw is able to infiltrate a planet. He has used his abilities to manipulate and control Doctor Strange in the comics, which we also saw loosely adapted in Avengers Infinity War, except in the comics it is significantly worse. Maw uses Strange as a double agent for him within the Illuminati, which he then takes advantage of to find Thanos' son, Thane, who is in a hidden inhuman city, and then makes Strange forget the location altogether. He is often described as a black tongue that spreads mischief and evil wherever he goes. Up next, number 9, Annihilus. First appearing in Fantastic Four Annual issue 6 from 1968, Annihilus is a Marvel villain created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby who is most well known for the Annihilation storyline. He's known as the living death that walks, and has superhuman strength, speed, stamina, agility, and reflexes, an exoskeleton that makes him even more durable, he can fly, and he wields a cosmic control rod, which allows for molecular manipulation, a slowed down aging process, and energy blasts. He is the ruler of the negative zone and has attempted to invade Earth on multiple occasions, with the Fantastic Four usually putting an end to his evil plans. Moving on to number 8, Lobo. In contrast to our last number, Lobo is a violent and brutal individual whose name literally translates into he who devours your entrails and thoroughly enjoys it. And that he does. Lobo, an alien who hails from a planet called Sarnia, once committed mass genocide on his home world just for kicks, exterminating them all by, get this, unleashing a violent plague of flying scorpions. At least he's creative. He's got an impressive skill set as well, which includes immortality, regeneration, a red power ring, superhuman senses, strength, speed, stamina, and durability, and a genius level intellect to boot. Funny enough, he is very protective of space dolphins and has a bulldog named Dog, so at least he cares about some form of life. Lobo is the kind of character who might not be able to wipe out the entire planet in one go, but with his drive for destruction and chaos, and his ability to regenerate from a molecular level, if he puts his mind to it, he could very well commit genocide again if he so chooses. And at 7, Brainiac. Brainiac is a villain who first appeared in Action Comics issue 242 from 1958. He is an alien villain who is often considered Superman's second arch enemy, next to Lex Luthor of course. Brainiac is capable of a whole lot of scary stuff. His cyborg body grants him superhuman strength, speed, stamina, longevity, and durability, and flight. He has a regenerative healing factor too. In addition to that, he's got superhuman intelligence, he's a technopath, he can project energy, take possession of other beings, can generate impenetrable force fields, and worst of all, he has vast psychic powers. These can include telepathy, telekinesis, mind control, and matter manipulation, although that has varied over the years. Thanks to DC's ever-changing and retconning of their own main continuity, several versions of Brainiac have popped up over the years, and in some versions of his story, he is actually responsible for the destruction of Krypton. Needless to say, he's got the abilities to bring down an entire civilization, especially if the likes of Superman wasn't around to protect Earth from his schemes. Moving on to number 6, the Supreme Intelligence. The Supreme Intelligence is yet another character whose intellect could bring down a civilization. So, the Supreme Intelligence, who first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 65 in 1967, is an artificial intelligence that rules over the Kree. It was created by the Kree as a supercomputer that consists of the greatest minds of their people over the last million years, a cybernetic and organic single collective intelligence that incorporates the disembodied brains of the greatest Kree individuals that have ever lived, and is preserved cryogenically. It has a seemingly immeasurable intellect with a vast knowledge that surpasses anything that we have on Earth. It is capable of cosmic awareness, telepathy, telekinesis, precognition, and postcognition. It can alter reality, manipulate matter and energy, and and create up to 3 androids at any given time. So, needless to say, with a force like that leading the Kree, you can see why the Kree have been able to nearly wipe out other extraterrestrial races in the past. Up next at 5, Eternity. Eternity is a wickedly cool abstract entity. Essentially every universe in the multiverse manifests itself as an anthropomorphic being known as Eternity. Eternity embodies Earth 616 reality, along with his sister Infinity. First appearing in 1965's Strange Tales 138, Eternity was the collective consciousness of all life, and was dependent upon it. Nowadays, Eternity rarely manifests himself, but when he does, it's because of an imminent threat to the universe, like when Thanos collected all of the Infinity Gems and imprisoned Eternity, proving that the entity isn't entirely omnipotent. That being said, Thanos ranked Eternity as standing above all other abstract entities. Hey, at least that's something to be proud of. Up next, number 4, Null. Null is a literal god, an elder god to be exact, having existed prior to the Marvel multiverse as we know it. Null had enjoyed drifting through the endless void of space until the Celestials screwed that up for him, evolving the universe into what it is now. Null off, attempted to wage a war against them, decapitating one of the Celestials in the process, which caused him to be banished for eternity to the void. Null then used that decapitated head to forge the Clintar, the race of symbiotes that Venom belongs to, and then the severed head would eventually become Nowhere. Known as the god of the symbiotes, he has the ability to create, control, and manipulate an eldritch darkness, a manifestation of the Primordial void that existed before the universe itself, allowing him to create and dominate over the Clintar. He is responsible for the destruction and corruption of entire civilizations across the universe thanks to his symbiote army. And at number 3, Anti-Monitor. The pinnacle antagonist in the famous 1985 Crisis on Infinite Earths, this big DC bat has near limitless cosmic powers. He can manipulate matter and energy, warp reality, has super strength, durability, and longevity, and of course the real kicker here, he can absorb entire universes. So yeah, Anti-Monitor could easily wipe out the world if there was no opposition preventing him from doing so. The Anti-Monitor is responsible for the most deaths of characters out of all of DC's villains, and destroyed thousands of universes to boot. He literally devours the energies of universes. He is responsible for the elimination of the DC multiverse, restarting it into a simpler, more streamlined universe. So yeah, without a doubt, the giant retcon tool that is Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list. Moving on to number 2, Thanos. Thanos is one of the more deserving villains on this list. He is an antagonist that, arguably, compared to our last number, worked hard to gain the ability to completely wipe out planets. Not condoning it, just saying. Thanos, the Mad Titan, was created by Jim Starlin and first appeared in the Invincible Iron Man issue 55 in 1973. He is a member of the extraterrestrial race called the Titanian Eternals, meaning he was born with superhuman abilities, although he would further increase them by means of bionic amplification, mysticism, and even some powers bestowed to him by his unrequited love, the entity Death. In both the comics and the MCU, Thanos hunts down the Infinity Gems, or stones, and once he's collected them all, has the power to do whatever he desires. He is omnipotent, and while he chose to wipe out half of all living things, if he preferred, he could have just obliterated the Earth or any other planet. Sans Gauntlet though, we wouldn't put it past him to whip up a scheme to destroy the Earth by other means. He has conquered a bunch of different extraterrestrial races in the past. And finally, in at number 1, Galactus. The reason Galactus tops our list is because of his one sole purpose. Compared to every other antagonist on this list, his purpose is literally to consume planets. He is known as the Devourer of Worlds. He's one of the most likely characters to attempt to annihilate the Earth, but not out of a particularly evil reason. He is part of the universal balance of the cosmos, an unstoppable force of nature that keeps the universe in check. First appearing in Fantastic Four issue 48 in 1966, Galactus is the product of a mortal man merging with the sentience of the universe during the Big Crunch, gestating for billions of years before emerging as Galactus, who was endowed with the power cosmic. He awakens with an insatiable hunger and must feed on planets and their life force in order to survive. He eventually stumbles upon Earth with his herald, the Silver Surfer, and is stopped by the Fantastic Four from consuming the planet after Reed Richards gets his hand on the ultimate nullifier, a weapon, one of the only things in the universe that could waver Galactus' hunger and pose a threat to his existence, nullifying him, and possibly everything else. It frightens him enough to move on from Earth and consume a planet elsewhere. So, probably for the best. In at number 10, Bast. Also known as the Panther God, Bast is the child of Ra, and first appeared in Fantastic Four issue 52 in 1966, but solely as a totem. It is the deity that the Black Panthers of Wakanda get their powers from, after proving themselves worthy of the mantle through trials, gaining the privilege of using the heart-shaped herb. A Wakandan legend states that when the 5 tribes fought for control of the nation, a warrior shaman received the vision from Bast that led him to the heart-shaped herb, and to the responsibility of becoming king of Wakanda and the very first Black Panther. In addition addition to this, whenever someone passes away, in the afterlife they are brought by Bast and Sekhmet to a mystical green valley in which they can run freely in peace for all of eternity. And at number 9, Kronos. Kronos was initially one of the Eternals of Earth, but due to an explosion from an experiment gone haywire, he lost his physical form, and was left being an abstract energy form. Silver lining though was that this gave him immortality and cosmic powers. In Kronos' first appearance, he took the soul of Arthur Douglas, a victim of Thanos', and transformed him into Drax the Destroyer in order to take on the Mad Titan, who was also his own grandson. Kronos was one of the many cosmic entities who fought alongside Adam Warlock in the Infinity Gauntlet series, in an attempt to stop Thanos from wielding the Infinity Gems. Up next at 8 is Hela. Hela is based on the Norse goddess Hel, and is a constant antagonist of Thor's. The character first appeared in Journey into Mystery issue 102, and was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. She's the daughter of a different incarnation of Loki, who had died during a previous Asgardian Ragnarok. Odin appointed her as the goddess of the dead, and she would often butt heads with him and Thor over her attempts to expand her power to the dead who dwell in Valhalla. Speaking of, next up at number 7 is Thor. Perhaps the most beloved god on this list, Thor is based off of the Thor of Norse mythology. In the comics, he's the Asgardian god of thunder, who first debuted in Journey into Mystery issue 83 back in 1962. Prior to this, another version of the character had appeared in Venus issues 12 and 13 back in 1951. Created by Stan Lee, Larry Lieber, and Jack Kirby, the aim was to craft a character who was stronger than the strongest person. As Lee stated back in 1992, I quote, "It finally came to me. Don't make him human, make him a god." Kirby had initially drafted up a version of a Thor character for DC back in the 50s, but the one that he did for Marvel in the 60s really stuck. Enamored by legends, he wanted to take the Norse Thor legends of the real world and give them a modernist twist. Up next, number 6, Odin. Speaking of Thor, let's take a look at his father, Odin. Also based off of the Odin of Norse mythology, Odin is an incredibly powerful Asgardian, and can tap into the Odin Force, an ancient and vast Asgardian power which includes energy projection, creating illusions and force fields, levitation, telepathic communication with other Asgardians, molecular manipulation, hypnotism towards humans, control of Asgardian life forces, teleportation, and the channeling of lightning. Yeah, so dude can do a lot. And at number 5, Superman. Okay, for starters, we could argue that Superman almost destroyed the world in the Death of Superman story arc because his fake death was a catalyst for Hal Jordan becoming possessed by Parallax, all because the copycat Superman showed up in his wake and destroyed Coast City. But I won't go there right now. There are plenty of alternate versions of Superman who have threatened to cause the planet's end through various means, like the Red Sun Superman who operated in and for the Soviet Union, and the Injustice Superman, who killed the Joker and then decided that humanity needed a totalitarian figure to keep it safe, since preventing crime and tragedy wasn't working out too well. Now for context, this idea was spawned out of grief when the Joker tricked Superman into murdering Lois Lane and his unborn child. That Superman alternate would then become entirely corrupt, threatening to ruin the world entirely. And at 4, Batman. Batman is a character who has saved the world plenty of times, but has also put it at severe risk too. Generally, he always prevails and prevents the multiverse from going kaput, but there has been a handful of close calls in his past. Let's focus on one particular instance though, in the Dark Knight's Metal story event. While you cannot blame the Caped Crusader for the emergence of multiple evil alternate Earth versions of himself, there are plenty, and all of them are nefarious and horrifying, Bruce did act as a catalyst of sorts for the entity that brought those evil Batman together out of the dark multiverse, the demon Barbados, who set out to conquer and destroy the regular multiverse. An investigation of Batman's accidentally opened up the gateway to the dark multiverse, which was, as we said, the catalyst for the whole story event. Yeah, yikes, that's putting a lot of shit on the line. Luckily, the heroes prevailed. And at number 4, Gaia. Gaia, an elder god, first appeared in Doctor Strange Volume 2, Issue 6 back in 1975, but under a different name, Mother Nature. A few months later, that name was changed to Gaia in Issue 4 of Giant-Sized Avengers. She possesses mystical powers of an unidentified nature, and appeared on Earth long before any life did. Her creation is due to the sentient biosphere known as the Demiurge, who made her at the dawn of life on Earth. Concerned with nature and evolution, Gaia has merged with Earth itself, although she often takes a humanoid form. She's also the mother of many other gods, and is often referred to as the Mother Goddess, birthing the likes of Thor after she and Odin mated. Gaia also has an interesting connection to our next number, in at 3, Set. Debuting in Marvel Future Volume 2, Issue 6, Set is also an elder god, but of a much more contemptuous nature than Gaia. While Gaia was concerned with life and geology flourishing, Set realized that if he devoured his fellow elder gods, he could add their power to his own, which has made Set technically the very first murderer according to Marvel. Other gods began to follow his ways, causing them to to become corrupt and turn into demons. Set has a bond with reptiles, and often takes a reptile form. He even brought upon the emergence of the Serpent Men, although that race didn't last overly long compared to humanity. Up next at 2, Death. Death is one of the entities in the Marvel Universe who has had a major impact on the events of Earth and its heroes. This is primarily due to Thanos, and his infatuation with the character. His quest for the Infinity Gems and Omnipotence was to prove himself worthy for Death, and to carry out her wishes of correcting the imbalance of living to dead beings in the universe. She's also the hots for Deadpool, which is pretty great. Aside from her history with Earth, Death is the embodiment of decay and destruction, and was born along with the universe itself. She has no true form, but often manifests as a hooded human skeleton, and she lives in the realm of death, a place inaccessible to the living. She first appeared in Captain Marvel issue 26 back in 1973. And last but not least, in at number 1, Galactus. Despite not being the most powerful entity on this list, Galactus is arguably the most prominent. The first minus the Asgardians to come to mind when you think of Marvel and gods. In 1966, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby collaborated on a new antagonist to add to their incredibly successful flagship title, Fantastic Four. The idea was to craft a character that broke out of the current supervillain mold. According to Lee in an interview back in 1993, I quote, "Having dreamed up many powerful baddies, we felt the only way to top ourselves was to come up with an evildoer who had almost godlike powers. Therefore, the natural choice was some sort of demigod." And what about Kirby? Well, he dived into biblical inspirations for the character's design, describing Galactus and his angelic herald Silver Surfer as mythical figures, and noted that they were the first gods. Perhaps the most famous of the Marvel gods, Galactus was initially an explorer known as Galen of Ta, who existed prior to the Big Bang. When the Big Crunch occurred, he was bonded with Eternity, where he changed and gestated for 1 billion years before emerging. In order to sustain himself, he must devour planets for energy. This is when he created the Silver Surfer as a herald to find planets for him to devour, and how the character came upon Earth.
Number 10, Purple Man. Purple Man is one of those villains who appears unstoppable because if you try to stop him, he can kinda just command you to stop what you are doing and even potentially kill yourself. Dr. Doom ended up using his powers to rule the entire world, which makes his power set kinda crazy. However, it does have at least somewhat of a limitation or weakness, which is nice. Those with indomitable will, such as Dr. Doom himself, can resist the influence of Purple Man's pheromone-based abilities. Also, in theory, if you can't breathe in the pheromones, then his powers have no effect on you. Still, even with his weaknesses, in the Jessica Jones Netflix series, they did a good job of making the Purple Man, or Kilgrave as he's known, played by David Tennant, feel like an unconquerable foe and a horrific threat. Number 9, Griever at the End of All Things. The Griever at the End of All Things was a villain who randomly shows up in Fantastic Four in 2018. She claimed her purpose was to survive beyond the edge of existence and mourn its loss when everything had finally come to an end. For some reason, she did not like the fact that the Future Foundation was attempting to create new universes using Molecule Man's help. She felt they were taking on a role that was greater than them. She had just been introduced when she managed to obliterate Molecule Man, who was previously known for being an indestructible and very capable villain before all of this, overpowering in his own right. And yes, this random villain, who has only thus far appeared in 3 issues, handily defeated him. Hopefully we'll see more of her because she was given so much power right off the bat that it would be weird to have her kill Molecule Man, tie her to the existence and death of everything, and then just never have her pop up again. Her and her weird buff tardigrade looking minions known as Endlings. At least they look like scary versions of tardigrades to me. Number 8, Juggernaut. I really appreciate just how overpowered Juggernaut really is. To really appreciate just how overpowered Juggernaut really is, you have to understand who he is first. Juggernaut is really Kane Marco, the son of Dr. Kurt Marco. Kurt would later become the stepfather to Charles Xavier, making Charles Kane's brother when Charles's mother Sharon married Kane's father. While Charles is a powerful telepathically powered mutant, Kane is not. He's just a regular guy. That is, until he accepts the Crimson Gem of Sidorak, which grants him unlimited amounts of strength, durability, and stamina. He is rendered immortal with the gem's powers and is therefore unstoppable in a fight. Only entire superpowered armies or insanely powerful enemies are really able to disable him, which is pretty crazy considering at the end of the day, he's just a guy with a gem. Number 7, Carnage. It's funny how we all thought Cletus Cassidy had maybe finally kicked the bucket a few times over the years, and yet he's often just come back instead stronger and even more crazy. His character transformation really serves the point I was trying to make earlier of how in comics it always feels like writers are trying to outdo themselves. Cletus went from being a crazy serial killer who was already fairly dangerous and terrifying on his own to being merged with the young symbiotic offspring of Venom, Carnage. Combined, they wreaked so much havoc and mayhem that Venom and Spider-Man were forced to team up in an attempt to handle the villain. In Absolute Carnage, resurrected Cletus bonded with the Grendel symbiote to create a new and improved, even more terrifying symbiotic army which threatened to awaken the big, cosmic, symbiotic big bad known as Null, the first god of the Abyss and the god of symbiotes. During the Absolute Carnage event, Carnage terrorized the entire Spider-Verse and Marvelverse when he worked to track down and hunt any and all characters who had ever bonded to a symbiote, which, it turns out, is quite a lot of people. Number 6. Apocalypse. He's a really hard one to beat because he's always evolving. When evolution is your mutant power, it means you can alter your physiology to become ever stronger, ever more invincible, and ever more powerful, which is exactly what Apocalypse does. Add in the fact that he also used celestial technology to modify his body, and you have a foe who is virtually undefeatable. Basically, you join Apocalypse or you die. There isn't a lot of wiggle room usually. Fortunately, right now he's more on the good side, working with those he normally opposed to ensure the survival of mutants in a much less violent way than normal for him. Thank goodness, because even with all the mutants of the world coming together now, Apocalypse is still not an enemy they'd be able to easily deal with. Number 5. Super Skrulls. I mean, even if we're just talking about regular Skrulls, they're pretty overpowered in terms of all that they can accomplish. Skrulls are an alien race with the ability to shapeshift, allowing them to infiltrate the ruling government and military forces of a planet. But Skrulls didn't stop there. When Skrulls were first introduced in the Fantastic Four in the 60s, one thing they couldn't do was adapt to a being's superpowered abilities. That didn't stop them though from using technology to try and emulate the powers of the Fantastic Four, however, as they impersonated them. That didn't stop them though from using technology to try and emulate the powers of the Fantastic Four, however, as they still tried to impersonate them. In the end though, their technology and not so ingenious plan was their downfall, and the FF won the day, outsmarted them, and thwarted a Skrull invasion of planet Earth. Years later though, we learn of Super Skrulls, who succeeded where their ancestors had failed. These are Skrulls who are given specific superpowers which also allow them to infiltrate the ranks of Earth's superheroes, eventually creating mass paranoia among the superhero community. As if there wasn't already enough mass paranoia with just regular Skrulls. Number 4. Galactus. When Galactus comes for you, you better hope you have someone powerful on your side. Like Squirrel Girl. No, I'm not joking. In the unbeatable Squirrel Girl series from 2015, Squirrel Girl ends up taking on the big, hungry cosmic threat herself and ends up preventing him from feeding on the life energy of the Earth. Surprisingly, Squirrel Girl is also OP in her own way. The thing about Galactus is although he's filled with the power cosmic, which makes him nigh undefeatable in most cases, it also makes him super hungry. He burns a lot of calories just existing, which is why he is forced to feed on planets. His need to feed makes him a villain because he opposes our hero's main objective, which is usually to protect the universe or the Earth, but it also means that his intent isn't primarily malicious. The guy is just hungry. And while he is a literal massive threat, because he's massive, he's also needed to ensure balance in the cosmos. So he's kind of both a villain and a neutral figure, and sometimes a hero. Number 3. Thanos. Now of course Thanos in the comics is still a big deal, but in the MCU I feel like they really beefed him up even more. So much so that a lot of people compare Thanos to Darkseid. Thanos is kind of like Marvel's Darkseid equivalent, even in the comics, sure, but the MCU really lifted him up to be on the same level as DC's Darkseid and make him once again worthy of that comparison. Thanos is also obviously super overpowered in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because he is armed with the Infinity Gauntlet and wielding all 5 Infinity Stones. If you can survive doing so, makes almost any character unstoppable. But even in the comics, when Thanos has not been armed with the gauntlet, he has managed to decimate entire planets and threaten the existence of life on Earth and throughout the universe time and time again. It's the Mad Titan's strong will and determination, as well as his physical might and prowess, that makes him so deadly, not the Infinity Gauntlet necessarily, whether or not he has it in the comics or the MCU. Strong without it. Number 2. Phalanx. The Phalanx are believed to be the creator of the Technarchy. They're an alien race that flies around assimilating planets, draining them of all their energy and absorbing all their resources and knowledge. Once your planet is infected, there is not much that can be done. They will either kill you or have you join them. They often destroy planets by infecting them with the techno-organic virus, which spreads and attracts the Technarchy, who don't even know that they are pawns of the Phalanx and were created by them. What's more, once infected, there is not much you can do at all to defend yourself against that virus, unless you are an Omega level telekinetic mutant like Cable, which, you know, most people aren't. Number Number 1. Mephisto. Mephisto is one of the biggest, most overpowered villains around. He can alter reality, trap you in another dimension, is a master manipulator and deal maker. He's basically Marvel's version of the devil. In fact, Mephisto is pretty content with being compared to or referred to as the devil, although he is yet to be confirmed as the devil itself and is instead believed to be just an extremely powerful demon. And I mean extremely powerful. To highlight just how powerful, we are going to talk about the latest issue of 2018's Avengers, issue number 34, which just came out. So, spoilers ahead. Warning, warning! Moon Knight has been up to some pretty suspicious activity recently in preparation for what will be, from what the Moon God Khonshu has shared with Mark Spector, some great threat. It turns out this OP threat was none other than Mephisto, or at least Mephisto was a part of it. And it took all the powers and relics that Moon Knight had taken from other heroes in order for him to defeat Mephisto once and for all, apparently. But, you know, we'll see. Not even Khonshu himself seems pretty confident in that. While Mephisto's powers may have strange restrictions, dying in mortality has not been known to be a weakness of his in the past, and overpowered villains who are defeated or who die in comics are usually more likely to return even more powerful than stay dead. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. Who is your favorite supervillain in the MCU? Who is your favorite supervillain in Marvel Comics? Who do you think is the most overpowered villain or alien threat? Let us know in the comments below. And be sure to click that like and give this list a share on your way down there if you know other fans of the Marvelverse and the villains within it. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight, reminding you as always to stay nerdy, YouTube.